Hello, welcome back to my channel. Let me get comfortable here. Yeah. Hey, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, hello, my name is Maya, and I am your host of Motivation and Muscles, with Maya. Ting. Hello. I am currently at a work conference / work professional development. So I got here Sunday night, and I will be here until I think Friday. And today is Tuesday. So it's been a long day of just conferences, sitting still, listening, learning, laughing, and getting prepared for the upcoming school year for our students. Anyway, I wanted to come on camera and to talk to you guys about something that I spoke a little bit about before in reference to the area of grief. And I wanted to kind of share with you a little bit of my story in hopes that we can have this dialogue. We can kind of have this dance in conversation to talk about some things that might be prohibiting us from moving to the next level in our lives, right? So for me, I honor my past. I honor it. But my past, what I'm recognizing is not my residence. And I think I've done that. I think that I have allowed my past and my past traumas to define who I am. And for a long time, I have just been fake. And I've been faking it until, that's the old saying, fake it till you make it, which it doesn't work. I've been fake and I'm exhausted. The problem is I don't know who I am authentically outside of my trauma, outside of my pain. And I'm choosing and I'm ready to unpack the bag of trauma that I've been carrying. And I'm hoping and I'm praying that you can come along with me on this journey to kind of be honest, to be real and talk about some things. So, hi, my name is Maya, and I am the only child of my parents, right? Now, my dad has 2 other sons, but I am the only child between my dad and my mom. And my mom was a single mom, and my mom is my everything, right? She's my ride or die best friend, the thorn in my side. However, she is the best person on the face of the planet, and I love her. Every recital, every concert that I was in, my mother was there. Every karate tournament, every cello recital I had, dance recital, it didn't matter how big or how small the event was, my mom and other family members were there to support. But I always knew that when I looked out into the audience, if it was a graduation, I knew I can find my mom. Like I said, other family members would be there too, but I just knew my mom was going to be there. She never missed an event. So when you see my mom, you see me. When you see me, you see my mom, right? And I remember her wanting to hang out with me and my friends at one point. And I was like, weird, But anyway, so every birth, I have two kids. I have a 27-year-old and I have a 21-year-old. She was there for every birth. She helped me raise my kids. I can just go on and on and on. When we would argue, sometimes we wouldn't speak for a couple days, and then after we got over ourselves, we just kind of picked back up. Anyway, in 2019, I had my last competition. That's the last time I competed on stage. I can look out into the audience. My mom is there. And I think that was in November of 2019. No. Yes, it was in November. Or maybe the end of October. Anyway, now November 11th, I believe, she had to have some foot surgery. One of her toes was like this and she wanted it straightened out. So, of course, I'm the one who took her to her appointments, and I told my husband I got to move in with my mom, just try to help her out, do whatever she needs, whatever. So he was okay with that. So she came in, she had the surgery, she came out, her toes were straight. And I remember she was bragging about getting the other foot done. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. Some people like getting their butts done and tummy tucks and boot. My mom was interested in getting her toes straightened. Go figure. So I remember right after her surgery, one of the instructions was to stay off the foot. So she didn't have to get crutches. I already had crutches from when I had a foot injury. So she used my crutches. She would get around and I would help her make her food and yada, yada, yada. So I remember she said, you like this because you think you in control because you get to tell me what to do. I was like, yeah, payback is. So I moved in with her, into her home, and, she so disrespectful. I would say, Mom, if you need anything, you call me, you text me if I'm in the other room or if I'm working, let me know, I'll get it for you. I could be downstairs working because at that time I still worked from home. I would hear something coming down the steps. It will be her coming down the steps in her crutches. I mean, like, lady, have a whole seat. So I would have to fuss at her about that, right? So it was one weekend. It was a weekend in December. She was like, listen, I am fine. Go home, spend time with your husband, and then just come back on that Monday. So I left that Friday to go home to spend some time with my husband. And I think it was that Sunday evening. No, it was on a Monday. My plan was to work and then go to the gym and then come home that Monday, right? So I'm driving to the gym and I texted her. I said, hey, you okay? And she responded, yes. And the way she responded, and y'all know how moms can be. You can always tell through a text if they irritated or if they got an attitude. They just respond with a one word, yes or no. And she was like, yes. And I'm like, okay, I'll talk to her tonight. So went to the gym. And I think we talked, if I'm not mistaken. I can't really remember, but she said, don't come back to her home until that next day. I'm like, okay, fine. So went back home, and I might have my dates wrong. It's all a blur. But anyway, so I go to bed, and around 10:30, I looked at my phone, and I said, why do I have missed calls from my little big brother? Now, backstory. About 17 years ago, my mom took in this young man who was being bullied. He worked with my mom at Home Depot, and she noticed that he was being bullied. And he does have a traumatic brain injury, but he's high functioning, blah, blah, blah. So about 17, 18 years ago, she took him in. So he's been being cared for by my mom this whole entire time. So his name is Billy, and Billy has been a part of our family for about 17, 18 years. So he is my little big brother, right? I call him my little big brother because he's very much shorter than me, but he's older than me. So Billy, my little big brother. And I saw a few missed calls from him, and I'm like, what is going on? So I wasn't going to call him back. But he called me again. So I pick up the phone. I'm like, hey, Billy, what's up? He was like, the police want to talk to you. And I'm like, the police? He was like, yeah, your mom said she couldn't breathe, so they're taking her to the hospital. I'm like, okay. So the police come on the phone and they're like, yeah, they verify who I was. And I said, yeah, I am Maya. That's my mom. What's going on? And they was like, well, she was complaining of not being able to breathe. Billy, my little big brother, called 911. So the ambulance is here. We're here. We got a pulse because she had passed out, but they got a pulse and they're taking her to the hospital. Can you meet, her there? I'm like, yeah. So I'm thinking in my head, she walking on that foot. She's doing something she has no business doing. She's probably going to lose the foot. That's what I'm thinking. She's going to lose the foot. So at the time, my 21-year-old, then 19-year-old was living with me. And I said, do you want to come with me? She was like, yes. We're traveling to the hospital, and I'm fussing at my youngest daughter, telling her how her grandmother ain't doing right by her foot. Because I guess it's hard to lose your independence and have to be dependent on people. I get it. Anywho, so we're driving to the hospital. I call my oldest one, letting her know this is what happened, and I'm on my way to the hospital, and I'll give you an update once we get there. So when I got there, I see my little big brother, Billy, and I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, I don't really know. And then he's telling me how my mom called out for him and said that she couldn't breathe and to call 911. And so then she passed out because she couldn't get the oxygen in. Okay, and I'm like, okay, doesn't make sense, but okay. So then I go up to the registrar when you first get into the hospital, and I told them who I am and that I'm here to see my mom. And they said, okay, just go ahead and wait. So I sit, and my husband didn't come with me. It was just me, my youngest daughter, and Billy was there. We waited for hours. And I'm getting irritated. So I'm standing, I'm not sitting, I'm standing. So this one guy, he must have been a nurse. He was like, you can have a seat. I said, yeah, I know, but I'd rather stand. And I wasn't in the way. I was just standing off to the side, and he kept trying to encourage me to sit down. And I didn't want to sit. And I told him, listen, just take me to my mom. Okay? Like, I don't want to sit. I'm good. So we waited, and then they finally called my name, or called my mother's name, and they had me and my daughter and Billy go into another room. And I'm just like, what is going on? And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, she really lost his foot, or she's just in bad shape. And I can't wait till I can get to her to fuss at her, right? So we're sitting there, and now I've seen enough Grey's Anatomy in the house and stuff, and I'm just like, this really must not be good, because we're just sitting here. And then a doctor came in. She was a short black doctor. I'll never forget her. And she had a very short haircut. And she came in, she sat down. She was like, okay, now who was with Mrs. Glenn when all of this went down? So I'm looking at Billy, and so Billy was like, me. And she said, okay, tell me what happened. And so Billy is explaining, and I'm looking at Billy like, yeah, you better tell me that, tell her the same story you told me. So I'm looking for inconsistencies in the story. And he told her the same story he told me. And she said, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I just want to let you know that we had to pronounce her deceased. And I said, wait, what? And I got up. And I remember walking out of that room and walking where there's the nurses station. And I said, Somebody better come get me. Okay? And when I said that, I can hear my youngest daughter screaming. And I look back and I just was like, because it felt like a dream. And I'm thinking to myself, why is she screaming like this? It's not real. From my recollection, there was no one else really in the hospital, no other patients. It must have been a really slow evening. And a nurse came to me and tackled me and held me. And I just was shocked. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I couldn't even cry. I just was bewildered. I felt like I had been punched in my stomach. And I remember thinking, does my mom know that this is happening? Like, what? So then my phone rang, and it was my oldest daughter FaceTiming me. And I clicked her on, and she is hysterical. And I'm just like, Justice, I don't know what's going on. And I can barely remember what that conversation was about. And I was in shock. Then they wheeled my youngest daughter out of where we were in a wheelchair. And I'm looking at her like, and she's crying. And I'm just like, what is happening? I see Billy, he's red in the face. I could not piece together what was going on. So another nurse came to me and said, do you want to see your mom? And I said, no. Absolutely not. Because my mom and we don't do dead people. And I told her, I said, I don't do dead people. And she says, you need to see your mom. And I said to her, I'm scared. And she said, I'll go with you. So that first nurse who came and tackled me held me through this arm. The other nurse held me through this arm. And we walked. And there was my mom. There was my best friend, the thorn in my side, my everything. I said to her, if this is a joke, we can just get up right now and go home. We can just get up right now and go home. I wanted her to get up. So I had to call my husband. I said, still being in shock, I called him. I said, they're saying my mom is dead. Now, I had already seen her. So he came, and I was told that I could stay as long as I wanted. I was also told that most likely what happened is she had a blood clot that traveled to the lungs. And if you know anything about blood clots, they take you out quickly. I talked to Billy again, and he said that when my mom screamed out for him to call 911, she was actually able to call 911, but he had to get on the phone and explain what was going on. And that my mom began screaming my name. Before she passed out. And I wish I would have never known that. I wish I would have never known that she was dying, screaming for me. Because for me, what does that mean? Does that mean she was looking for me for help and I wasn't there? Was she screaming my name because she was mad with me? Like, what does that mean, right? Me and my family, we stayed at that hospital 5-6 hours. I just kept going in and out of that room where she was, in and out, talking to her, praising God, thanking God for her. Shortly after, I get a phone call. Apparently, my mother was an organ donor. Go figure. I didn't know. And apparently, there was a need for her pupil, or not her pupil, her cornea, I guess. So the donation people had me on the phone for what seemed 2 or 3 hours, just asking me questions. A lot of the questions I didn't have answers because I didn't know. The hardest part was leaving because I felt like I was leaving her. I didn't want to leave her. When I knew it was time to leave, because they had a white sheet on her, and it really just looked like she was sleeping, honestly. And I touched her foot with this hand, and to this day, I can feel her feet. I'm so glad I touched her. I know that sounds morbid. I'm so glad I touched her. I didn't say goodbye. I took a picture, and again, I know that sounds morbid, but I took a picture where her feet were this way and her head was down there, so it wasn't like a picture in her face, and I needed that photo. And I left. And I went back to her house, where when I walked inside of her home, the dishwasher was still running. She had cleaned up. And I laid in her bed. And I had to begin making phone calls. Why am I telling you guys this? I'm sharing this story with you because since December 9th, 2019, my world has never been the same. I'm still trying to figure out who I am. Because I don't have a mom. My dad is not really a permanent fixture in my life. Not to mention, 3 or 4 months after my mom passed, I was like rejected by my father. And that's a whole nother story for a whole nother video. Just trying to figure out, who in the hell am I? Without my mom. So forgive me if I tell small stories about my mom and I speak as if she's still living. Because although it's coming up on 3 years, I don't think my brain has really caught up. Shortly after my mom passed, and I want to say about 5 months after she passed, I became I got a certificate in the area of grief counseling. They recommend you wait a year after a major death. But I felt like I needed to do that. I felt like I needed to do that because I went through a plethora of emotions. Suicide. And I know that's not something that YouTube really wants us to talk about, but it's something I experienced. Having those thoughts of ending it all to be with her. And it's a shame that YouTube wants to censor certain words, because we need to call a spade and talk about these things, because people are suffering. And they're suffering in silence. And I want to build a community where we talk about these things. And it's not always about losing a loved one. It can be losing anything. We're all grieving something, and we have to pinpoint it. We have to figure it out. We have to identify it. We have to unpack those trauma bags, and we have to move forward. But before we even go there, I want you to know that I see you. I see you. You're valued and you're needed. Because as human beings, we have that need. So I want to hear your grief story. I want to hear them. So we can begin to move. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, to be quite honest, I don't really know who I am outside of the death of my mom, outside of the trauma, because it's changed me as a person. But it's also made me realize that I can begin the healing process through service and through servicing others. You. So yeah, I'm ready. I'm tired of carrying this bag of trauma. I am tired of allowing the trauma to define me. My mom was a god to me, little g. And she wasn't. She was just a gift. She wasn't a God. And I'm learning to identify who I am through Christ. And I'm ready to begin helping others and creating a space, a safe space for others to come and to lay down their trauma, to unpack their trauma bag, and to begin moving. So I'm going to leave it here. because we're a little over 30 minutes. I want to thank you for listening. And let's have this dance. Let's have this dialogue. I'm excited. You know, if you have any questions, you know how to ask them. You can put them down in the comments. Yeah. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I love you guys. Thank you for listening. And I will see you guys in the next one. I'll talk to you later.